Hey guys, it's me, Poppy Rain here, and today I'm going to read you a story. This book I actually thrifted for Gabe, but I thought it'd be fun to read for you guys. It's called The Kingdom by Demetrio Maguire. Apparently, according to this, it was a Kickstarter program. It was written by Katrina Maguire and Damien DiMartino. Illustrated by Damien DiMartino. Okay. In a realm where colors wore their boldest shades and rain fell wherever they wanted, two children lived in an old and mighty castle called the Rose Fortress. The firstborn was Princess Charlotte. She was known through the land for her curly green hair, as rich as grass beneath the sun. Younger by a few years was Prince Luca, born with violet eyes as deep and entrancing as the midnight sky. Rose bushes grew wild and tall as giants, forming archways and caves and secret passages with their massive stems. In the daytime, the rose blossoms would cover the walls of the immense castle like 1,000 bright faces. In the evening, the roses would drop their petals softly to the ground, and the shadows between the thorns would beckon with secrets and mysteries. Then dawn would bring the rose blooms back to life, beginning the cycle anew. Some say the fortress itself was made from the magical vines of the garden, but no one knows for sure. The children played in the castle day and night. All day they chased each other through its halls, hiding in the fragrant hedges and tumbling in the warm grass of its vast courtyard. After dinner, they spooked each other under the glow of the moonlight, exploring shady undergrowth and weaving tales of monsters and goblins. They were inseparable siblings, two halves of a whole, and whenever they teamed up against imaginary foes, they would shout together the words of their family, "For the kingdom!" On the 500th anniversary of the Rose Fortress, the children woke their parents with a bundle of freshly pruned yellow and purple roses. Oops. They thanked the children for the gifts and hugged them both tightly. So it's Cloak of Wisdom. We've got Armory of Duty. Once there was an amazing kingdom. Here is one of its 1,000 stories. The queen smiled at the king and said, "Such a great occasion requires some momentous gifts." The king nodded and walked to an old wooden chest in the corner of their bedchamber. He studied the wall above the chest for a moment, then touched a few stones in a very specific order. The wall parted, and inside a hidden rose blossom lay a small golden key. He took the key and opened the chest lock. The first gift he lifted out looked like a plain blue robe, but the inside was lined with a mosaic of dazzling crystals that sparkle like the stars. "Charlotte, my oldest, this is the robe of wisdom." It will protect you from any magic and keep your mind focused on the health of our kingdom and all its creatures. Princess Charlotte accepted the rose with wide eyes and promised to take very good care of it. The king then pulled out a silver suit of armor and helmet, polished to perfection and etched all over with miniature roses. Luca, my brave son, this is the armor of duty. It will absorb any blows and keep the deeds pure and true. Prince Luca bowed and accepted the armor, staggering a bit under its weight, and solemnly promised to live up to its name. I hope you like your gifts, the queen said to both their children. These treasures have been passed down for 500 years to the children of the royal family. They have been reminders of what makes our kingdom prosperous and safe. May their purpose strengthen your own, and remember to always share with each other what they teach you. Thank you, the children said in unison, smiling at each other. Later that day, the king and queen held a great feast for the castle's anniversary, and the most talented and interesting people in the realm arrived to celebrate and entertain each other. Let's watch magicians, Princess Charlotte begged her little brother, tugging on his sleeve. No, the knights in the tournament, Prince Luca replied, trying to pull his sister the other direction. They could not agree, so they ran their separate ways. In the courtyard, Charlotte watched a gigantic turtle shell float down from the sky, landing gently upon the grass. A magnificent old wizard with a tall, drooping hat and a long, curved beard emerged from its giant neck hole, magic crackling with sparks all around his body. He proceeded to perform a feat of wonder and mystery. He sent guests on pets flying through the air, made raindrops dance in formation before the delighted queen and her daughter, and conjured beautiful visions of glowing dragons out of the mist and dew. His name was Son of Moon, and Princess Charlotte knew instantly she wanted to be a great magician just like him. After he finished performing, the princess approached him and said, Please, great Son of Moon, teach me all you know. I promise to be a devoted student. The wizard stroked his long beard and replied, To study as many hours of reading and practicing deep into the night. Are you ready to make that sacrifice for magic? Meanwhile, a very large knight stood in the center of the training grounds behind the fortress, his gleaming golden armor and great ruffling beard both blazing in the sun. He nodded once for the melee to begin, and suddenly he was sword fighting 7 of the castle's best guards all at once. He peered and dodged and bashed the others on their helms to knock them to the ground. Then he mounted his magnificent white horse and defeated all the opponents in the jousting arena, dashing them from their saddles as if they were pushing over scarecrows. His name was Knight of Day, and Prince Luca knew immediately that he wanted to be a brave knight just like him. After the mighty Knight of Day had defeated all who would spar with him, the prince ran up to the fearsome warrior who was still astride his ferocious snorting horse. If you please, sir, let me train with you. I wish to be a gallant fighter like you. The knight wiped the sweat from his brow and replied, I will train you, but you must put all else aside. The daily glory of the training ground is not for the weak of heart or limb. Are you ready to make sacrifices for strength? Both children, from their completely different parts of the fortress, happened to answer there would be mentors questions at the exact same time with the exact same words, yes, for the kingdom. That night, the wizened son of moon walked with Princess Charlotte down to the basement library, where books were nestled among the shelves that continued off into the darkness. He made a pile of them as tall as her and told her to read every one. The princess complied right away, reading every spell book Son of Moon put before her. After many months, she had memorized, practiced, and perfected all she could. She turned frogs into newts and newts into flies. She was especially good at transformations. She made dishes dance in the cupboards and doors close by themselves. She learned how to heal a wound and made lightning flash from her fingertips. The wizard was impressed by her focus and power. So was the king, who would quiz her each morning on what she had learned the night before. Knowing all these spells is an amazing accomplishment, my sweet girl, he said one morning as she ate a breakfast with tired eyes. But choosing when and why to use them, that is what makes you great. What will make you great. The prince trained with all his heart as well. He was clumsy at first and not that strong, but he was quick and could soon slice up a sack of grain in the blink of an eye. He learned how to soothe a wild horse and make it leap over a thorny hedge without a scratch. He did push-ups alongside Night of Day, until his muscles felt like they would burst. And he ran races with the dogs in the yard until they stopped, panting, yielding to his stamina. The muscular Night of Day rewarded him with grunting praise for his work and commanded that Luca do it all over again. For months and months, the prince trained every day. As soon as the sun came up, the queen would watch him practice as well and cheer for her brave son. You will one day be a legendary warrior, I have no doubt, she told Luca, as they ate bread together during one of his brief breaks. But there are skills that can be more powerful than 100 swords. Compassion and justice can sometimes do the work of 1,000 knights. They were excellent students, and their parents knew they would both be marvels in their own way. Months turned into years, and the royal children continued to focus on training. Their fading relationships with each other worried the king and queen. No longer did the siblings play amongst the rose walls or share their daily thoughts. When one worked, the other slept. Other issues worried the king and queen too. A change in the weather had them both concerned with the whole kingdom. The rose fortress had grown darker, colder. Crops were not as bountiful as they were in previous harvests, and the citizens were growing uneasy. The roses were smaller and the thorns were larger with every passing day. One evening, when Princess Charlotte came to Son of Moon and began their lessons, he had a troubled look upon his face. "What's the matter?" she asked. "Child wizard, the winds are changing," he replied in a low and solemn tone. "Where once no farmers were troubled by ill weather, cold breezes and vile rain have begun to fall. I fear the legend of the cursed warlord may be coming true." "The cursed warlord?" Charlotte interrupted, forgetting her manners. Yes. The old tales warn of evil man from snowy land who will destroy the kingdom when the centuries of beautiful weather fade." "We will arrive with swords in hand and dark armor, ready to take the fortress by force. Can we defeat this man?" she asked. The wizard smiled at her and winked one yellow eye. "Yes, child, I believe you are ready. With our forces combined, no man can cross our path without fear. Come prepare yourself. Gather your things. I know where the most powerful spell in the land is hidden. With you, my great pupil, we can retrieve the spell and use it to secure the kingdom. My brother could help us, and my father and mother. With all our armies and powers combined, surely our chance of success will be even greater, Charlotte said, already turning to run upstairs and alert the castle. No, no, shh, hissed the wizard. Quiet yourself. The legend is very clear that only magic can defeat the cursed warlord. Do not alert your family and warriors, for they will only be harmed or killed, and if they know you have left, they will foolishly follow to protect you. Even if we tell them only magic will do, trust me, child. We must do this ourselves. Charlotte nodded and began to prepare for the journey. She donned the blue robe of wisdom and took one final glance at her home before joining the wizard in his giant turtle shell. Before the dawn, and before most in the rose forest had opened their eyes, Prince Luca was preparing himself for another grueling day of training. There was a soft knock on his chamber door, and to his surprise, Night of Day ducked his mighty head under the doorway and entered. What is it, sir? Have I disappointed you? Night of Day grunted. Have you noticed a change in the air? He said in a low and pensive voice as he looked out the window at the gray horizon. Some evil has gripped the kingdom. Where once man and beast lived in harmony, now there is discord and fear. The kingdom must be under a hex of a terrible witch. I've heard she's 1,000 years old and will stop at nothing until she turns the world to ice. Prince Luca swallowed hard and steeled his gaze. Can this witch be defeated? Whatever is evil can be defeated by might, the knight replied. She is likely gathering her power in a magical valley at the edge of your realm's border. Let us leave at once to see this foe firsthand. If we can defend her ourselves, we shall, and glory will be ours. Surprising the knight with this victory will make him so proud. But if he has grown too powerful already, we will return with valuable information for your father's army. Either way, we win. Luca nodded, feeling a swell of responsibility in his chest. He donned the silver armor of duty, which fit him much better now. They both quickly gathered some weapons and supplies, then raced away on horseback under the rising sun before anyone could see them leave. Princess Charlotte and Son of Moon floated to a steep mountain covered from peak to base by squawking birds. At the bottom of the noisy mountain was an intricate maze, its walls 10 feet tall, made entirely of bones. Come, Son of Moon said. The spell is at the center, guarded by the nasty Minotaur. They flew directly to the maze's center, bypassing all its tricky twists and turns, as the old wizard smiled. Sleeping on a pile of sticky leaves was the biggest brown minotaur Charlotte had ever imagined. It smelled of sour milk and sweet mold. The two magicians stood for a moment before Son of Moon coughed an ahem into his hand. The minotaur awoke with a start. Who disturbs me? Blinking his black bull eyes, he fixed on the pair with an angry gaze. I will break your bones, he bellowed, then leapt to his feet and charged with horns lowered. Thorns, son of Moon calmly said to Charlotte, and together they conjured rose bushes from the bone walls and floor, just like the ones surrounding the rose fortress. They grew rapidly and snagged the Minotaur by the leg, trapping him in a tangle of thorns. Lightning, the wizard yelled, and he began to shock the Minotaur with crackling bolts from his hands. Charlotte began to concentrate on the same spell, then hesitated. "It is necessary to hurt him like this?" she asked. "What, eh?" the wizard yelled over the noise of the zapping. "Do we have to hurt him?" Charlotte hollered. The wizard ceased his lightning spell and blinked at her in disbelief. "I suppose not," he grumbled. "The spell is here under the leaves upon which he was sleeping. Go with your nimble fingers and fetch it, and we will have what we need to secure the kingdom." The princess searched the pile of leaves until she found an old parchment scroll that fell as thin as the leaves it was buried under. "Spell of multiplication," she read from the elaborate seal. "Yes, that's the one. We will be able to conjure a magical army when we meet this cursed warlord. He will be completely overwhelmed by copies of us. What if the warlord hurts these copies? Will they feel it? How does it work?" "Child, it's magic," the agitated wizard replied, snatching the parchment from her hand. "The wizard will undoubtedly share a purpose, probably. And they are expendable. What does it all matter? Winning is our only goal." Before Charlotte could ask another question, a tremendous screech thundered through the air behind her. The wizard's eyes became wide as full moons. The princess turned around to see a half-bird, half-woman, all old and bent like a broken stick, with long sharp talons on her fingers and one fat tooth in her puckered mouth. Her clothes were dirty and made from a tattered weave of feathers, and her hair was all tangled and knotted. The old woman began squawking like a bird, and gulls from the vast mountain lifted into the air and began circling overhead. The birds seemed to answer her call, and soon all you could hear was the clucks and caws of flapping wings. "Faugh," the wizard muttered. "You and your birds. As regard such a filthy mess." "Who are you?" Charlotte called out bravely. "We mean no harm. We're only here to retrieve a spell that we must use on a noble quest." The woman angrily made noises. She shook her fist and stamped her feet, but all that escaped her mouth were cackles and screeches like the birds all around them. "Don't bother, child," she said, living here too long, said Sun and Moon. "She may seem bird-brained, but she is the author of this spell, and she will guard it most fiercely. Quickly, we must silence her before her flock begins to attack." He wriggled his finger and moved his hand in a circle, and the old lady's eyes were glassy and pale. Her bird noises turned to human sobs, and she mumbled and stumbled to the ground. "What are you doing?" Princess Charlotte asked. "Turning her eyes to stone," the wizard replied. "She cannot attack what she cannot see." "No," the princess cried. "There has to be a better way." But the wizard ignored her and continued his spell. Knowing she could not stop the wizard, Charlotte remembered her transformation spells and quickly incanted one in desperation. There was a poof of smoke, and then the witch, Asregard, seemed to disappear into her dirty rags and hair. The noisy birds all fell silent and perched on the bone walls, staring at the old clothes on the ground. The clothes moved a little, then a little more. Suddenly, a fat black bat popped out of her sleeves, beating its wings, hovering in the air as if expected to fall. "There," Charlotte said to Sun and Moon. "If she must be blind, at least she can survive in this form." The bat screeched and fluttered over the wall, and all the birds followed, Asregard trying to talk to her, until the bat disappeared into the crevices in the tall mountain. "Faith," the wizard said, I suppose that's another way to do it. Now, we have wasted too much time already. Off to the borderlands to defeat the cursed warlord before he enters the kingdom. Or would you rather stay here with your new flying friends? He rolled around in his great robes and returned to the turtle shell, passing the Minotaur, still squirming helplessly in his trap. Before Princess Charlotte made it to their transportation, she turned and cast one final spell to turn the rose brambles into grapevines. The Minotaur was still trapped, but was no longer scratched by the thorns, and was surrounded by luscious grapes to eat. "Thank you," he said meekly. "This is how you treat visitors instead of breaking their bones," the princess replied. And before the Minotaur could speak again, she spun around and ran off after her tutor. The night of day and Prince Luca had raced their horses all morning directly to the borderlands, where the knights believed the evil witch would be waiting in a place called the Valley of Barren Rocks. As they were crossing the stone bridge, Luca noticed that the water had gone a strange color, almost golden orange. "Look," he cried, "something stains the water." "It's just sunlight," the knight said. "No, it travels in the current from upstream," the prince replied. He went down the river bank and took off his helmet, then used it to scoop up some water. He smelled it, then dipped his finger in it and tasted it. "It's honey!" Now, who would pollute a river with this much honey? We must investigate. "Young prince, you must not be distracted from the evil." But the prince was already galloping up the riverside, leaving his companion behind. He came upon the base of the waterfall, where he found 3 goblins stacked one on top of another. Each of them seemed more foul than the next. The top one was pouring honey from a huge beehive over the head of the massive, shackled bear, while the other 2 licked their lips. The knight trotted up from behind and harumphed. "None of our affair. We should get back on the road." Prince Luca had already pulled his bow and aimed an arrow at the goblins. "Nobody torments a bear in my kingdom," he said. He got as close as he could and let his arrow fly. It struck the bottom goblin directly in the rump. The stack tottered as the bottom goblin howled. All 3 of them fell into the river. "We can't be swimming! Help!" one goblin screamed as they headed down the stream. Luca turned to his mentor. "Free the bear while I pull the goblin out of the river." The knight snorted. "You take orders from me, boy. Besides, an angry bear is no trifle." And nobody. He leaned in for emphasis, his breath hot and dry. "Nobody saves goblins." But Luca jumped into the river anyways, unhooked each goblin's tunic with a thrust of his short sword, dragging them to shore like shrimp on a spit. "Why are you covering this bear in honey?" Luca yelled when they were all on shore. Night of Day hadn't moved an inch, and stood red-faced with his arms crossed. The bear growled at Luca. The prince took a deep breath and carefully approached the bear, then sliced it free with one slash from his sword. The bear immediately fled into the woods. Night of Day gritted his teeth, with a face so red you would think it was on fire. "No, I believe we have a witch to fight," the knight said, with sword drawn, ready to cut the first goblin to stand up. "We're being hungry," cried the smallest goblin. "All the berries are drying up, and all the vegetables is freezing. We only want to eat a little of the bear," said the one whose bottom had been struck. "Yes, Only a little, not enough to make the bear be disappearing, agreed the third. Luca looked at the goblin and sighed. Promise to never eat or glaze the bear again, he said, and you may eat from our supplies. We have more than enough food. The goblins cheered as they ran towards the horse's saddlebag. The knight watched, all with a fearful scowl. You'll regret this, he said. But Luca wasn't paying attention.